Okay, we are live.
Okay, can everyone hear me? See me?
Yes.
Well, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Stark County District Library Board of Trustees. Monthly board meeting, October 20th, 2020. We do not have anyone signed in for public comments. Is that correct?
That is
I
correct.
do not.
All right. Next item on the agenda is board president comments. I do not have any comments. So with that, let's move into staff reports. Mary Ellen?
Okay, hello everyone. So as you know, the past 8 months, we've been really focused, or you could even say completely overwhelmed by everything with COVID and our reopening efforts. And my monthly reports throughout the pandemic have been focused on our reopening efforts. So today I thought I would do something a little bit different because our operations are stabilizing somewhat, and we're getting back into the groove of doing library business. So the team and I, we have revisited our strategic plan. So I wanted to give you a little update on where things stand with the strategic plan. We had actually just kicked off the strategic plan with our staff in February before we shut down. So we dusted it off in September, and we were pleasantly surprised to see that even with the COVID pandemic going on, we still managed to accomplish some of the goals we had set out for 2020. Prior to closure, we had the board approve new safety and security policies, and those were updated and implemented last winter. We successfully completed a website redesign in July, and that has a new look and feel, improved navigation and content. We opened the Jackson branch, as you know, in August, and we received positive feedback from that community. We set up our central inventory space at the main library so that branches can send overflow material. We started that work back in May, and now branches are regularly sending parts of their collection to be housed there. And then most recently in September, we launched an online recruiting module in our ADP software, and this is available for internal and external job candidates to apply for positions with the library. So, so despite the pandemic, we were able to make some progress with some of our goals, and we're looking forward for the remainder of 2020 to continue on with some of our strategic projects. As you know, we're going to be restarting our Reimagine building projects in 2021. We have continued work on the central inventory collection to do, and we're making some updates to this strategic plan to take into consideration the climate we're living in. So as you know, we received CARES Act funding from the state, so we're working on our priority items for that and any other changes we need to make to our operations related to COVID. And given recent events, we're looking more closely at diversity, equity, and inclusion priorities for the library. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Mary Ellen? No. That sounds good though, Mary Ellen. It's good that
Okay, thank you.
It's good that we're able to continue with addressing some of the strategic plan issues. That's good to hear.
Yeah, agreed.
I know
Thanks.
you and your staff, and we're all aware of the fact that you and your staff have had your hands full of late, especially. And I know it's difficult at times to focus on the routine business of the library, right? With everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I'm so thankful to the staff. They have really shown tremendous flexibility throughout all of this, and such strong commitment to the library.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I think it goes without saying, Mary Ellen, maybe it shouldn't go without saying, maybe we should say it, that the board is 100% behind you in your efforts and your work with the library. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that very much.
All right, thank you. Chris, if you would give the fiscal officer report, please.
Sure. If you've had the opportunity to look through some of the financials in the board packet, and if you look through there, you'll notice that really we're on the same trajectory that we've been on for the last couple of months, which is fairly positive given the general condition of the economy right now. Our revenue has been coming in pretty close to the original targets set at the beginning of the year. The property tax, we've collected $11,120,000, which is just a little under what we had anticipated for the year. The PLF is currently about 2% less than what we had originally anticipated and been told prior to COVID. So our major revenue sources are largely the same as what we had expected them to be. We're still a little low on the PLF. Like I said, it was 2% less. And then some of our fines and fees. So we've not been processing passports. We've been having a little bit less traffic to the library. There's a little bit less public service and things that have happened. So we're a little bit lower on that front. And then our donations are a little bit less than what they are in the past. But those are historically make up less than 3% of our total revenue. So it's not really that large of an impact compared to the taxes, both PLF and property, which are coming in well, right where we want them to. So overall, we're doing really well on the revenue in the general fund. If we look at expenses, we're still trailing, or not trailing, we're doing pretty well on the expense side of things as well. Through September, we have spent 57% of our expense budget in the general fund, which is about $8.8 million. I expect us to land somewhere between 12 and 13 million in the general fund. We usually spend a little bit more in the last quarter of the year, and then also in that last quarter, when we give out the kind of the final expense report, we include any active encumbrances to calculate a carryover. So we will still have a fairly significant carryover going into 2021, which is wonderful news. Especially if you look back at April and May when we were anticipating major funding losses and going through large budget cuts. We definitely did not see the worst of what we might expect. And then again, I already covered the PLF, which is for the year so far. Actually, this is through October. We are down $111,320.37, which is, again, not that much. It's 1.78% less than what we had expected coming into 2020. And then Mary Ellen had mentioned the CARES Act funding that we received. So libraries throughout the state of Ohio were eligible for $25,000 per public library building. Stark Library, we have 10 public library buildings. So we received $250,000 through a state program that's sponsored by the federal government through the CARES Act. To date, we have spent about $101,000 on anything from masks to acrylic dividers to various things that systems that we came up with to do curbside services, bins to quarantine materials. Some of that went to legal fees to cover just trying to work through contract things with the union and with our staff. And we made a lot of changes to get where we are today. So all in all, we've hit about 101,000, and then we've been looking at different projects that we want to make sure we utilize the entire 250,000, because if we do not use it by the end of the year, we have to send it back. So we've been looking at projects where we can make the most use from a library operations standpoint and a public health standpoint, and still use as many dollars as we possibly can. So hopefully by the next meeting, we can tell you exactly where we're going to use the remaining $150,000. And that concludes my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Chris? Chris, what are you hearing about the state tax collections? Are they still strong?
They appear to be. So the way the state tax collection, correct, not the property tax?
Yes, the state tax collection.
So the PLF is directly indicative of the state tax collection. So usually the way it works is the state every 6 months gives us a projection of what they think their tax collections will be. And that in turn makes up what the PLF will be, because we get 1.68% of the state general revenue fund. So if the state collections are down in, say, August, then our September payment should be lower. Our payments have been tracking at almost exactly their projections from prior to COVID, and above the projections that they actually sent us in June. So I am not a tax expert or a state budget expert, but in my opinion, from what I am seeing, the revenue side for the state of Ohio seems to be okay. I think the jury is still out on what their expenses have been in 2020 and what accommodations they might have to make in 2021 to counteract that. But the world we live in is how much are they actively collecting, and what has the state legislator given us for a budget perspective, and we really have not been impacted either positively or negatively. It's been pretty much what we were told we were going to get. And I think that should stay the same. Ask me again next year and my answer might change, but for now, I think we're pretty safe.
Good, thank you. Any other questions for Chris? All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. If you've had an opportunity to review the items contained within the consent calendar, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same. Thank you all. Buildings and Ground Committee report.
I have no report.
There isn't a report, as Bob said. The only thing I just want to mention is we'll be sending out an invite to the members of the Buildings and Grounds Committee to meet before our next board meeting to review some recommendations.
Okay. Good. Human Resources Committee report. Anything to report?
I believe we're going to deal with that in other resolutions. Shauna, are you going to handle that?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Yep, we
Okay.
met just for the rest of the board to know. We did meet. The HR committee met as we agreed to at the end of the last board meeting on October 5th. And yes, we'll talk more later in the meeting about some of the outcomes from that.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, next then we have the Finance and Audit Committee report, and we have some resolutions within that. Chris, do you want to lead us through that, please?
Sure. So the first resolution is on page 17 of the board packet. This is a resolution. If you recall at the last board meeting, we approved a very similar resolution for a fund for the $250,000. This is a separate grant through a different portion of the CARES Act and different grants that we were able to receive. I was originally under the impression that we could receive this into the general fund. I've since been advised by the state auditor's office that we should create a separate fund for it. So again, the resolution on page 17 of your packet is just the library or the board creating this fund and authorizing me to deposit the funds into the $3,000 grant into that new fund. And then it also creates appropriations for that fund, which would be $3,000 to supplies. We don't know exactly what supplies those are yet. We have until June to spend those funds. So we want to spend and allocate the $250,000 before we spend this $3,000. But we'll give you guys a report on that. And then after that $3,000 is spent, this fund will be closed out. So again, this just creates and then appropriates funding for there. And then Steve, it does need to be a roll call vote.
Gotcha. So any questions or comments before I ask for a motion? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. This is a roll call vote. Edmund?
Aye.
Bob?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And Steve, yes, the resolution passes. Chris?
Then on page 18, 19, pages 18 and 19 of your packet, there's another resolution. This is an annual resolution that the board passes. This is for the accepting the tax rates for 2020. So the state or the county auditor sends us essentially our estimated revenues for the property tax each year. The one thing I would like to point out in here is that this is actually higher than what it was in 2020. So that is good news, assuming that property tax collections come in, we'll actually receive more money than what we did in 2020. But again, this is just approving the $2 million rate that we have in here. And then this will get sent to the county auditor, and they will accept it and send it to the commissioners. And it's just the board's recognition of our tax levy for this year.
Okay,
And it does need to be a roll call vote.
understand. All right, any discussion before I ask for a motion to approve? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Edmund,
Aye.
Bob,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Steve, yes. Resolution passes. Chris?
And I apologize, it said page 18 and 19, that was only page 18. On pages 19 and 20 of your packet, you'll see the table of charges that you may be familiar with the library. We have added a new charge at the bottom of page 20. If you recall, I want to say this was in December of last year, but I may be wrong. We had some issues with out of state, particularly out of country people trying to get library cards and check out materials, and it caused an issue. So we made a policy change to our one of our policies that basically stated that if you were out of the state of Ohio, if you did not live, work, or attend school in Ohio, you could not get a card. As we are required by Ohio law to offer a card to anybody that does work, live, or attend school in Ohio. The policy does allow for us to charge a fee. However, we never had a fee because we did not have a method to implement that fee. We now have a method. So this is basically allowing us to charge a $30 annual fee to somebody who does not live, work, or attend school in Ohio to be able to get a library card from the library and then use our services. So again, that's just the bottom piece on the table of charges there.
So we can't stop somebody from being out of state for having a library card?
We can. This just allows them, we can also allow them to get a library card if they pay this fee.
Okay.
So prior, we were just not allowing anybody out of Ohio whatsoever to access a card, which a small portion of our circulation and use was tied to that. So this way we can still allow that and allow access to the services, but we do charge a fee. As if anybody lived in Ohio or worked in Ohio, they would be paying taxes. And we would receive that money through the PLF. This is our way to recoup some of that cost. And
Is this how other libraries handle it?
yes, there are, not all. Go ahead, Mariam.
I was going to say at the time when we had the trouble with the out of state, out of country cards, we did research on it, and it is common practice for libraries in Ohio to allow people who live, work, or go to school in Ohio to have cards free of charge, but it is customary that there is some fee associated with it if you are not related to the state in some way.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, hearing none, I would ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Okay, hearing none, no opposition, then the resolution chart passes. Thank you. At this point, we will go into executive session to discuss personnel and real estate matters. I'd ask for a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
All right, this is a roll call vote. Edmund,
Aye.
Bob,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Sally,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.